Hello, beautiful people. My name is Emma,
And I'm MC.
and we are your hosts of the G Forces podcast. So, this week today's March 2nd, specifically, when we are filming. And March is Women's History Month, so we wanted to do an episode focusing on women in motorsport. We have done an episode in the past on women in motorsport, which I will link in the description of wherever you're watching this. And then if you're watching it on YouTube, I will probably add it onto the screen so you guys can just click onto it there if you want to listen to that episode. But we wanted to do something a little bit further this episode than we've done in the past. And so we are going to be reviewing MC.
There's a pretty prolific female figure in motorsport, and her name is Mary McGee. Unfortunately, she did pass away relatively recently, but her career and the feats that she accomplished really deserve to be highlighted. And there's a little teeny tiny bit of crossover between her and the F1 world, but, I think that there is unfortunately an underrepresentation in like the past of female like just drivers in motorsport. So we're going to go over her career, her accomplishments, and kind of like how much she paved the way for so many other women. So,
Yeah, and then I am going to go over the all female team, which participates in a few different areas of motorsport called the Iron Dames, and I'll kind of go over how they got started. I did want to go over some current news and like current things that are happening before we got into the rest of the episode. So this past week was F1 winter testing or preseason testing. To be honest, did not watch any of it. I cannot sit there for 8 hours and watch them go around and test the cars. I saw clips of it. MC watched some of it.
yeah, I mean, it was 3 days, 8 hours each day, 2 4-hour sessions. I've been able to get about halfway through, and then the rest I've kind of seen highlights from TikTok or like other social media. It's crazy how and I'm forgetting who it was, someone on TikTok commented being like, if there is one job I don't want in this industry, it is to be a commentator for testing, because they have to speak the whole time.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's really interesting, and sometimes you can just tell that they've had to speak for 4 hours. So it was just like crazy to kind of witness. Obviously, you can't really take anything away. One thing to note that kind of a few people noticed was apparently Lewis did not, like, he left testing early, so not really sure what that's about. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot of content to consume because there's also press conferences as well. So I mean, is it pivotal for you to watch before the season? No. Should you watch it? Up to you. So yeah, go forth with that. That's really all I had to say. I mean, you can't take anything from it. I mean, they're
No.
assuming so much to these cars and trying to figure out so much. I mean, just the amount of FlowViz that McLaren used alone is, I feel
Yeah.
like that's the biggest like shocker, but yeah.
I also think that the last time that we had recorded an episode was before the livery launch,
Yes,
and
yeah.
now we're after the livery launch, and it was an interesting thing to see. It was definitely giving Hunger Games vibes at one point, well, at the majority of it, but like also F1 has kind of always been over the top and ridiculous, so like I'm not surprised.
Yeah, so like some highlights of ridiculousness was, the Spice Girls have performed at livery launches. The one of McLaren from I think 2007 or 2008. I mean, Lewis is literally like Jimmy rigged into a harness and drops from the ceiling. So, in terms of bombastic ridiculousness, I actually think this one was quite tame for how creative the teams have gotten in the
If
past.
they wanted to get crazy, they could have had land San Fernando, like skydive into the stadium. That would have been fun.
Now, if they're going to continue to do this O2 event every single year, I personally feel like they should switch up basically the entire way they did it. I feel like, for how big this was for each team to only have what felt like, honestly, 3 minutes or less and one kind of stage question. I don't know. It felt like really, really important. I mean, it's 75 years. I thought, I don't have an issue with it if that's what people want to do.
To be honest, I think the concept of delivery launches relatively stupid, in my opinion, for the most part, because they're essentially the same every single year, or
Yeah,
variations of basically the same thing, and so you're just showing us the same thing that you had last year.
yeah, no, I mean, like, I think Jack Whitehall kind of, like, hit the nail on the head being, like he made a comment, a joke about that, but yeah, I don't have an issue with it. Like, if they want to keep doing it, fine. I would just, like, switch it up a little bit, because I just don't feel like there was enough highlight of each team. Um, And yeah, I don't know, maybe use it to like bring back some of the old guys and like really highlight who they were, especially since it's 75 years. They had a few historical like clips and looks at the past, which you guys know, that's the shit that I live for. Um but yeah, I don't know. I just think maybe change the format if this is what you're going to do, but also like why have this but then the cars have their own, like the teams have their own launches, but I don't know.
It's all a lot.
Yeah, so, yeah, it was fine.
Um,
Oh, Take That was great. Take That was fantastic at the end.
I turned it off when Take That was playing. I really could care less.
I did fast forward a certain blonde person. I was like, I can't handle this opener.
Drive to Survive comes out on Friday, so make sure to watch that. The trailer came out already, and it looks like Netflix is really piecing together the drama in a very dramatic way.
Yeah,
So I'm very intrigued.
if the season's as good as the trailer, it's gonna be funny. We're trying to get, and I know Mom's listening to this, we're trying to get Mom, I think this will be the season that, like, really gets her into it.
Yeah.
So Donna, watch it on Friday, because we know you're listening to this.
IndyCar started this past week as well.
Yeah.
And it was the St. Petersburg Grand Prix. And we watched most of it, I'd say.
I watched it. I think I
everything.
missed. I think I might have missed like an Indy Next practice.
Yeah, we even watched most of Indy Next as well, and we watched the Indy Next race.
Guys, we're paying for Hulu Live right now because of awards season and March Madness.
So we're really taking use out of it.
And also, we're going to the National Grand Prix again this season. And I don't know, I felt like we just wanted to like actually know what's going on in this season.
Yeah.
And I actually feel like I already know who I'm rooting for.
I feel a lot better about it now.
I feel better.
I'm excited for the Indy Next race when we go and see it in person. So we have some favorite drivers that we've decided on. And watching the IndyCar race, we know that you could tell Will Buxton was so excited the whole time because of the action.
Yeah, the only weird thing for me was he had to be in a suit because I think it's just like Fox standard. Because Fox Sports has the right for IndyCar. And so I think it's just unfortunately the standard. But yeah, Will and Hinchcliffe are together with, I don't remember.
Townsend. Bell.
I was like, his name. I was like, why do I?
But hearing people refer to Hinch as James really threw me off. Not a fan.
Yeah, because the F1 family calls
it
him
Hinch.
Hinch. But yeah, we're loving it. It's crazy and it seems messy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
F1
really
could never.
Yeah, just
literally in the last few laps of the race today, who was it?
Stingray
Robb was blocking Alex Palou from passing, and then finally Alex Palou passes
because
him.
Newgarden was coming up.
And then Newgarden and Stingray Robb are both Chevy engines, and so Stingray Robb let Newgarden
just go right past
because they're both in the Chevy family.
So messy.
Meanwhile, Stingray Robb was blocking Palou's Honda.
Also, for some reason, when I heard Stingray Robb, I really thought like, who's the guy? Billy Bob Thornton. Like, that's kind of what I imagined. And then seeing him on the TV, I was like, oh my god, he's like just a 20-something-year-old blonde kid. I was like, I really thought you were like 50.
Okay, I think that's basically everything that I have. Was there anything else that you had in the news?
No, just that when we're watching Indy Next, there are 2 female drivers, which is really, really exciting. I believe Jamie Chadwick was in it last year,
Correct.
and she's another female driver that I think like George Russell is friends with. So whenever she was successful last season, and then this season on Indy Next, there's Sophia Flourish.
Something like that.
And then Deegan. What's Deegan's first
Haley
name?
Deegan, I
Haley
think?
Deegan. Both of their cars are incredible. So shout out to you guys. Absolutely love the way they look.
Yeah, they look really good.
So good. And yeah, it's just, of course, it's beginning of Women's History Month. We love to cheer on for the girls. So I think just seeing the whole race weekend, like I'm already excited for
Yeah.
us.
We're cheering on the girls. We're cheering on Miles Rowe, and then a name that you guys might be familiar with just because European circuit. Dennis Hauger. He
Yeah.
is driving in Indy Next this year, and he did win this first race. I believe he's driving for what is it? Is it Andretti or Chip Ganassi's Indy Next team? It's the first time that they've had a team in a really long time.
I think I'm not even.
It's
gonna
one
guess.
of the. It's one of those.
I was about to confidently guess.
So big deal that he's in it, and it's just a name that you might be able to recognize and someone that might be easy to follow. And also one thing I forgot to mention with IndyCar is Prema. They are participating this year. They have a whole team in IndyCar, so it is exciting to get to see them race. Their cars are the only ones that look very similar, where everybody else is. You could not tell that they're on the same team.
Yeah. That's the only thing that throws me off.
Yeah.
But
there's a spotter guide on their app, so pay attention to that. Okay, now we're going to get into Women's History Month.
Okay, so a lot of my info came from a New York Times article that was posted on December 4th, 2024. Unfortunately, it is behind a paywall, but thanks, Mom and Dad. Love your New York Times account. There was also a wonderful article on the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame, and there's a 30 for 30 23-minute documentary on her. It's on YouTube. Go check it out. We'll link all this on YouTube or in the description for you guys, because one, the documentary, in my opinion, was absolutely wonderful. A really good representation.
MC was teary-eyed.
I was. I don't know. I think it's just like such an achievement what she achieved. So let's go through her life. So if you recognize her name, she was the wonderful woman that was at the Canadian Grand Prix last season. There was an interview on Sky Sports that kind of went viral. And she got to meet Lewis, or as she beautifully called him, Mr. Hamilton. So, Mary Bernice Connor was born in Juneau, Alaska on December 12th, 1936. She said her dad left pretty early, and so I believe it was really just her mom, and her older brother, Jim. Her and her brother were sent to live with her grandparents in Iowa because, and I didn't know this aspect of American World War II history, but Alaska was considered a possible invasion site with the war going on in the Pacific. So there was a similar move that you saw in like England during the Blitz, moving kids to the countryside. There was a similar move for women and children, or like important or pivotal personnel, to move to the continental U.S. So her and her brother moved to Iowa to go live with her grandparents, and her mom, who was a nurse, actually stayed behind in Alaska. After the war, her mom ended up coming back, I think, like, only within a year or two. Her family would move to Phoenix, Arizona, and this is where she would stay, graduating high school in 1954. I believe this was kind of the point where motorsports and her life began to intertwine. And just so you guys know, because, once you're out of high school, you're fully grown, Mary was 5'11". So, like, I just love that as someone who's 5'9". Us tall girls.
And motorsport, at least F1 being a short person sport.
Short king sport. Her brother and her husband are really attributed with introducing her into the sports world of cars and motorcycles. And one of the first times she sat in the car, it was prompted by her brother. He was a race car driver, so he was surrounded by this world. And he asked her one time at a race if she wanted to drive, and she was quoted stating, "I wanted to wet my pants. I was so scared." She took it on track and stated, "After that, my motto was always say yes. If someone asks you to go somewhere or do something, always say yes." Um, After that, she fell in love, and her brother is credited with really being the one to give her the idea of a clear mind and keeping calm, something that was always mentioned about her and something that she herself really attributed to her success in motorcycle and car racing. Her and her husband, Don McGee, would marry in 1956, and Mary would get her first motorcycle, a 200cc Triumph Tiger Club. And I think she was using this to commute to work. She bought it off of a friend. Um, in her early days, Mary was involved in car racing, winning a lot in Porsche Spiders. But she also was going to begin motorcycle road racing to help her with her car racing skills. Mary became the very first woman to hold an FIM, which is I think it's like French, it's the Motorcycle Federation, FIA equivalent, I'm assuming. And she was the first woman to hold a license. When she called, she remembers stating that, "I'm calling to get an FIM license." And they had never had a woman reach out to them before to gain this license. Um, and so they made her try out to allow her to road race. Just so you know, she already had wins in Porsche Spiders, other things like that under her belt, and she was commuting to work using her motorcycle. So the idea of a tryout was just kind of like ridiculous to me. She did do this tryout in a pink polka dot hat. In the documentary, she mentions that she hadn't been more nervous in her life until this point, but her brother's advice to keep calm and breathe through it was something that she attributes to keeping calm in this moment. Mary at this point is doing road racing, and I really think in 1960 she started to fully focus on motorcycles around that time. I could be off by a year or two. There was an infamous story between Mary and the Hollywood star Steve McQueen. Shout out Magnificent Seven, Great Escape. Apparently, well, not apparently, she stated that her and Steve were friends and that they were at a New Year's Eve party for Hollywood stars who raced cars and motorcycles. McQueen was ribbing her and said, "McGee, you've got to get off that pansy road racing bike and come out to the desert." Thus, she switched to dirt riding in 1963. This story is kind of twofold because the other aspect of her moving from road racing to dirt road biking um was blatant gender discrimination. In 1963, there was a rule change declaring that women racers need to get points in a specific class before they could move up. She was the only woman racing at this time, and it was clear what was happening. They wanted her out of the competitive field she was already in. Sadly, around 1964, Mary's brother was killed in a road race, and she herself got into a head-on collision. She found out she was pregnant around the same time, and so there wasn't much going on, especially because her recovery from this head-on collision took around a year. Mary would persevere and rejoin the dirt bike racing world, and in 1968, Mary would become the first woman to finish the Mexican 1000, the first official Baja race. The pride of her career was, and probably the most infamous drive of her career, was the 1975 Baja 500. 365 riders or teams. My understanding is that you could enter as either a single solo driver or as a team entered into this event. You also could drive whatever vehicle you wanted. So while Mary was driving a motorcycle, you saw anything from Volkswagen Volkswagen buses to dirt buggies to anything to pickup trucks.
Think of this event as like Hidalgo, but with a car
Yeah.
or motorcycle, whatever you want to call it.
So Mary did this solo on a motorcycle and came in 17th out of 365 riders or teams. She became the very first person to achieve this, and just for some context, this is a quoted description from the New York Times article. The Baja races, there's also a Baja 1000, covers hundreds of miles off-road in the Baja California peninsula of Mexico. As the temperature surpasses 100 degrees, contestants have to crisscross rocks, bramble, brush, ruts, mountain slopes, and desert canyons. Riders are allowed to bring teammates and use sturdy vehicles like pickup trucks. So they can use, like quote unquote off-roading vehicles, I understand. Mary, like I said, did it in a motorcycle. The article continues stating her right shock blew out, her rear wheel lost practically all of its spokes, she destroyed her sprockets, and she was pitched into a cactus. But she still managed to accomplish something that no one, not just a woman, no person, had ever been able to do before.
In the documentary of her, like the 20-minute documentary, the videos that they have of
There's no
this,
road. You're completely driving through
and there's points where her
no man's
body, like
land.
she's holding on to the handles of the bike for dear life, and her body is like flying around.
The sad thing is, she continued to face discrimination for being a woman. There was a specific trophy for the accomplishment of, like, being the first solo finisher. It was called the Iron Man Trophy, and this didn't end up going to her. It went to the first solo car driver who finished behind her and was a man. She didn't really get the notoriety that she deserved and mentions this in the documentary, and McGee would end her motorcycle career around this time for a good 30 years. I think around this time she also unfortunately went through a divorce. Um, I do think she still worked in like motorcycle sales and stuff like that, and I'm sure she was around a racetrack. McGee would uh end up reconnecting with some old friends, and she would later on in life she would enter women's 60 or women's 70 and older class races, doing dirt road racing.
That's so awesome.
In 2012, she was named to the Motorcycle Federation's Legend that year at a dinner in Monaco, which I thought was pretty incredible. In 2014, she was inducted into the Trailblazers Hall of Fame, which is a California-based, like, just I think, like, lovers of, like, motorsport. And in 2018, she was inducted into the American Motorcyclist Hall of Fame. Like stated earlier, we became aware of Mary when she was at the Canadian Grand Prix, and shouting out that ESPN documentary, Lewis was a producer. Me and Emma had no idea. We just when I was doing her research, I found out about the 30 for 30 documentary, and I'm like sitting there with like misty eyes, and all of a sudden it's like producer Lewis Hamilton, and me and Emma were like,
Now it
so
all makes sense.
yeah, so, like, I think it makes sense why she was at the Canadian Grand Prix, but also, like, again, just Lewis highlighting someone who's so important to
We're guessing
motorsport.
that it was probably filmed around that time or maybe earlier on, and then Lewis invited her as a guest to the Canadian Grand Prix.
Sadly, Mary passed away on November 27th, 2024. She was 87 years old. Um, Again, I don't think I can highlight it enough. I think the 30 for 30 documentaries are incredible, but this one really, like, it really, like, hit home. I don't know, just, like, seeing a woman, like, just be a pioneer for art, like, for a field is incredible, and there's just so much optimism from her that, it's, like, it's so, contagious, but, yeah.
Yeah, and the wild thing is the 30 for 30 came out the day after she passed away, so she never even got to see it air. Um, but it's available for anybody to watch on YouTube, so like we said, we'll link it in the description so that everybody can take a watch. It's definitely a really good documentary.
Yeah, but that's Mary McGee. I said to Emma, like, just reading up on her and her career. I think she's, like, up there in probably my top 5 favorite, like, motorsport, athletes.
I
She
think it's also
just
her spirit. Like, you can see it in the documentary that, like,
as someone who's high anxiety and, like, high strung, it's such an enviable outlook on life to just breathe through things, stay calm, you know? That's what she said, like, granted, she got pitched into freaking cactuses, and she said in her Sky Sports interview, she broke her ankle bone and a collarbone and, nothing important, but, like, I don't know, it was just such a, like, incredibly optimistic attitude.
well, maybe this is because I'm reading the book right now, but if any of y'all have ever watched the series or read the series, Anne of Green Gables, um, there's something about Mary and her 30 for 30 that gives me the same vibe. Like, she feels the same energy that Anne does. Weirdly, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, no, I think it's just this, like, contagious positivity that not
Yes.
everyone has, in the face of something that's not always easy, in the face of, gender discrimination. She still persevered. She wouldn't be told no. And yeah, I think that, yeah, there is something just that not everyone has.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. What?
Just like, okay.
I am going to talk about the Iron Dame's neck. Forewarning. My notes are all over the place, so my explanation of this is going to be all over the place. That's it. I'm not going to I'm not going to explain
Wow.
anymore.
Way to really sell it this week,
I'm sorry, I cannot multitask. My brain is tired. I am tired. Not feeling great this week. Let's get started.
It's been a rough one.
All right. So, the Iron Dames are a woman focused project that was started in 2018 by founder Deborah Mayer. It all goes back to 2013 when Deborah Mayer made her racing debut in a Ferrari 458 CH EVO during the Ferrari Challenge Europe in Monza. In 2017, the Iron Lynx Motorsport Lab was started. So, Iron Lynx Motorsport Lab was kind of how they started Iron Dames. It was what they raced under for a couple of years, actually. They just nicknamed one of the cars eventually the Iron Dames, and then eventually they were able to start racing under the name Iron Dames. The Iron Lynx Motorsport Lab is an Italian auto racing team founded by Andrea Piccini, Deborah Mayer, Claudio Schiavone, and Sergio Pianazzola. I think I said that correct. I feel really good about that, actually. The team is based in Cesena, Emilia Romagna, which is where Emilia Romagna is the region where the Imola track is in Italy. It operates 2 racing teams now, the Iron Lynx and the Iron Dames, as we know. Deborah was the one to create the Iron Dames project, so she wanted to focus on promoting women in motorsport. In 2018, they competed for the first time with an all-female lineup at the 12 Hours of Dubai. They placed second in the GT3 Pro-Am class and 9th overall. At this time, like late 2010s, they were in like early 2020s. They were also starting to help support financially, I believe, some lower level formulae or karting athletes, I would say. So one of them that you might know the name of if you paid attention to F1 Academy the last 2 years, Hamda Al Khabaisi. She was part of the Iron Dames family at one point. In 2019, the Iron Dames lineup competed in the European League. Oh my god, I don't know why this just changed to that. The European Le Mans series. It changed to European League Mans series. No, that just looks wrong. The European Le Mans series at Monza. They also joined the FIA Women in Motorsport. So you'll actually see them on the Women in Motorsport. They have an Instagram, they have a whole website. It's a whole thing. In the Le Mans Cup that year, I believe it was 2019. Yeah. Like I said, my notes are all over the place, guys. So they had two cars. I believe it was that year. The number 8 car placed first with 1 pole position, 4 victories, and earned an automatic entry to the 2020 24 Hours of Le Mans. I only wrote down one of the cars. So guessing it was just one car that year. Probably was just one car, to be honest. Uh, and the European Le Mans. Oh my gosh, it changed La to League every time in my notes. I hate spell check. In the European Le Mans series, the number 83, which was the Iron Dame's main car, placed 4th, and then the number 60 car placed 6th, both entries standing on the podium twice over the season. In the 24-hour Le Mans, the number 83, the Iron Dame's car, placed 9th in their class, and the number 60 car placed 13th in the class. In 2020, the entry number 83 with the all-female lineup with Frey, Gadding, and Gosner in the European Le Mans series. Like I said, there were 4. I got my notes from like 2 different websites, and they were getting the years both not. They were both getting the same information, different years.
Yeah, one of my articles had like very different takes on the Steve McQueen story, and then she spoke about it in the documentary. So I was like, I'm gonna take what she said.
Yeah. So yeah, the drivers were Frey, Gadding, and Gosner, and they were the ones who were driving the number 83 Iron Dame's car for the most part. Gadding and Deborah Mayer teamed up for the Le Mans Cup, the first all-female pairing in the series. The team entered 3 cars in the 24 Hours of Le Mans, including the all-female lineup of Frey, Gadding, and Gosner, and they placed 9th in the LMGTE AM class. There's a lot of different letters.
Oh my god.
I think it's like the Lamborghini something, whatever. On November 20th, 2021, Michelle Gadding became the first female champion of the Ferrari Challenge, which is crazy in 2021 that it took that long. In 2022, the Iron Dames had an entry, the car number 85 in the GTE EM class of the World Endurance Championship. The Iron Dames began racing under their own license finally. So this was the first year that they were actually racing under the Iron Dames. Before that, it was
just like a nickname.
It was like Kessling or something, which was one team, and then they were racing under the Iron Lynx for a while. But the Iron Dames are the all female cars.
Okay.
So the Iron Lynx aren't all female.
Okay.
But the Iron Dames are. So yeah, they finally were able to race under their own license, fielding a team of Frey, Gadding, and Sarah Bovey in WEC, ELMS, and GTWC Europe Gold Cup. They did have some newcomers, which you'll recognize their names. Catherine Legge, which you recognize from IndyCar. Mm-hmm. Sarah Bovey, which she was helping out with the main cars. Dorian Pin, who you recognize, and Maya Voog. Voog? I think that's how you pronounce it. She's German. It starts with a W. Believe that should be a V sound. All in different categories. The Iron Dames partner with, eventually, I believe it's 2022, they partner with the FIA Girls on Track initiative, which was the Rising Stars initiative to support the next generation of promising female racers. The Iron Lynx entered 4 cars in the LMGTE category of the 24 Hours of Le Mans with a best finish of 7th in class for the number 85 Iron Dames car. So the Iron Dames car seems to be their best performing car out of Iron Lynx and Iron Dames. The whole Iron family. Sarah Bovey became the first woman to claim a pole position in WEC history, qualifying first at both Monza and Bahrain. Dorianne Penn took a dominant victory in the Ferrari Challenge, winning 9 of 14 races with 13 podiums, 10 pole positions, and 11 fastest laps. In 2022, Iron Dames become the first all-female lineup in WEC to podium, which I believe I already said that. Maybe. I don't know. Again, my notes are all over the place. And the first all-female race winners in European Le Mans Series. The Iron Dames win the Gold Cup in 24 Hours of Spa, the first all-female lineup to win in the race's GT era. They actually have a whole merch line dedicated to this win where it shows the famous hill of Spa, which is, I know the name of it.
Oh, it's not going to come to me.
It's not going to come to me, but I know the name of it. The merch is them standing at the bottom of it, cheering, the 3 or 4 girls that are on the team, girls and women, girly pops, whatever you want to call us. Anyways, 2023, the Iron Dames WEC trio of Sarah Bovey, Rachel Frey, and Michelle Gadding competed in 3 of the most highly contested endurance championships in the world, IMSA, GTWC, and WEC, and became the first all-female team that emerged victorious in the FIA WEC and in second place in the overall championship. Dorianne Penn keeps breaking barriers, rising to the LMP2 challenge in WEC, and she became the first woman in Monza to start from LMP2 pole position, being named the Revelation of the Year, which is an interesting term.
Yeah, it's weird.
I know. Anyways, Iron Dames also start in 2023 an equestrian team.
I mean, I guess the world's kind of aren't it's the same group of people.
It's the same rich people.
Yeah, I mean, cool.
Well, didn't know this, but it was the first and only women's show jumping team to compete in the most important FEI, which I'm guessing is the Federation of Equestrian International or whatever, show jumping events around the world.
Huh. That's interesting.
I thought that, not to feminize a sport, but I personally always thought that show jumping was a lot more feminine. It seemed more of a female popular sport.
Isn't there women competing in the Olympics? That's my only understanding of show jumping is the Olympics. I don't know anything about the world of equestrian.
Yeah, but I think it's teams, club teams almost.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because your
maybe
team,
they're all just co-ed.
Your team in the Olympics, is co-ed.
Yeah, so maybe there's just enough men and women that
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. 2020. Well, actually, just to comment on the equestrian thing once again, it would be funny because I think Lando Norris's sister competes in equestrian sports. Don't know which one, because there actually are many equestrian sports.
There are.
But it would be interesting if she got involved with the Iron Dames and then had that connection as well, because then Lando would be forced to do stuff with the Iron Dames.
Yeah, you'd have to see what she does, but like we said, there's lots of different things you can do with a horse.
That is very true. Lots of things you could do with the horse.
You know what I mean.
Horse girls rise, okay?
We were horse girls.
I still am a horse girl, let's be real.
We didn't own one. We were cut off at that point.
Yeah.
Mom was like,
we're not doing that.
Pulling you out of the sport. It's gotten too expensive.
Ridiculous.
Not that rowing really saved her bank account either.
Hey, we went to public school. It was funded by
our
public school.
Yeah, we did go to public school.
Anyways, in 2024, the Iron Dames participated in WEC again, IMSA Sports Car Championship, and ELMS, and then the Asian Le Mans Series. I need to understand the difference between the Le Mans Series. There's the European Le Mans Series and the Asian Le Mans Series, and there's probably an American Le Mans Series, knowing how motorsport is. How can you all have different Le Mans series? Is it because I need to do more research in it. I'm wondering if it's all using Le Mans cars.
Well, when we watched Le Mans, a bunch of the cars are like different classes.
Yeah, but like there's specific classic Le Mans car.
I don't know how it works to be like that's a side of motorsport I haven't been able to wrap my head around.
So like, cause Le Mans
it's
is
probably
in
simpler.
France. So how can you have an Asian Le Mans series and a European Le Mans
Distance,
series?
probably.
So that's where I need to do the research to understand it fully, obviously. But in case any of you guys were curious, I am curious as well.
Oh my god.
Some highlights were 2 poles, 3 top 5 finishes in WEC, as well as 4 poles and victory at Imola in ELMS. Marta Garcia, who was the first winner of F1 Academy, she participated with Iron Dames in Freca. Dorian Pin participated in F1 Academy, and I believe that she still competes with the Iron Dames today. And then in 2025, so this year, the Iron Dames expanded their rally program with Sarah. I was gonna say Sally. Sally, the rally driver. Sorry.
Sorry, Sarah.
Sarah Rumeau. I think that's how you say her name. I apologize if it's not. And
Sally, the rally driver.
I'm so sorry. And Julie Amblard joining the WRC2 championship and continuing in the French Rally Championship. So basically, after all of my really hectic and messy notes, the Iron Dames are a female-led motorsport, now also equestrian, program, company, project, whatever you want to call it, that is just trying to help promote women in motorsport and create female-focused teams. So that is why there's been the several World Endurance Championship teams that are just women. And I believe that they are also trying to help out F1 Academy graduates to push them a little bit further along, just because it has seemed like the F1 Academy graduates, once they finish F1 Academy, it seems like they're kind of getting a little stuck. So I think that Iron Dames are trying to help them, but it also, I think it's giving a lot of women the opportunity to participate in higher levels of motorsport that they probably wouldn't have had the chance to otherwise.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these women have been more successful at the 24-hour of Le Mans than some of our F1 drivers that we know that have competed in the 24-hour Le Mans.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of big. And they are supporting a lot of young karting drivers as well. They have a whole roster on their website. So definitely go and take a look. And if you want to support them, they have a whole merch line. So please make sure to go and support if you can, if you want to. Definitely a team to follow, as they have a huge impact. And I think that, like, they're only just getting started. I wouldn't be surprised if they become one of the dominant teams in the sport eventually.
Yeah, it's cool to see the expansion every season, how they, continue to shine out in new like championships across motorsport.
Yeah, and each year on their website they have like how many podiums and victories they got, and each year it just like increased by so much, which was really cool to see. So that is the Iron Dames. We are going to get into our final thoughts now.
So, continuing with the women in motorsport, I just wanted to bring up a rumor that's been circulating. I knew Emma was probably thinking about it too. There are rumors that Susie Wolf.
Oh, I didn't think about this one, but yeah.
Oh, what one are you thinking about? Okay, well, we'll get to yours after mine.
Yeah.
Susie Wolf might attempt to campaign for FIA for the FIA president role, which, lots of feelings.
Yeah, so I watched a TikTok on how like the actual voting process works, and there's like insane corruption. I mean, are we surprised? There is the FIA.
We've heard there's corruption. We're not sure if there's corruption. It's all hearsay, but there might be corruption.
Yes, all hearsay. Not accusing anyone of anything.
Read between the lines.
But yeah, no, I've heard rumors of like people getting paid off for their votes. Like it's a whole thing. And then the way that voting actually works is like there's the Federation of Motorsport in your country as well as like the Motorsport Club in your country, and like both get votes. But then if you're in a country like England where there's a million motorsport clubs, those all basically have to factor down to 12 votes.
Yeah, it seems super complicated, but I don't know, it's a fun little rumor. I think the one thing we've also thought about is the conflict of interest with her husband being Toto Wolff. If, she were to seriously think about this, could this possibly mean a change of leadership at Mercedes? And then also, people are not happy with the FIA. I mean, look at the way they were booed at the O2 Arena.
Oh, it was hysterical.
So
Laura was laughing.
I think it's really interesting because if you guys haven't seen, there's the World Drivers Association that I think like George is in charge of, and Carlos was just appointed to some role, but they've kind of been speaking out because unknown to us, but something we complained about prior was all the fines and where the money goes. And apparently we're not the only ones in the dark. The actual people paying the fines don't know where this money goes to. And then the other thing is that the World Rally Championship, their Drivers Association, just came out with a statement regarding the fines as well. And the FIA is in charge of every motorsport, right? Like, internationally.
Y'all, all I'm saying is
there's need for change. There's time for change.
There's need for change. But y'all need to take a tip from some of the good old days.
Nikki Lauda.
And y'all need to hold the rest of the drive. Carlos Sainz being like the president of like the GPDA now, you need to hold them all hostage in a room while George Russell goes and negotiates.
Yeah. I fear though that they would fear that they would be forced to make TikToks by their admin. Admin would be like, "You guys are stuck in a room together for 24 hours. Make the TikToks."
I feel like they would voluntarily do that weirdly. They would be like, "We're having so much fun." I
don't know. So I think it's going to be interesting. I really, I don't know enough about what the role does. But yeah, it just would be crazy to see Susie throw her ring in the hat. And, I think that, she's proven to be a good leader. She's a driver as well. So, like, she understands the world. So, curious.
On another note, we are not going to say the name of the person for legal reasons, but almost just said her name. Oh, that would have been bad.
So long story short, we're filming this on Sunday, March 2nd. For those that couldn't figure out, we're not really thrilled with what's going on in our country right now. And there was a really difficult conversation between leadership, what some people see as leadership, I don't really. And it was incredibly embarrassing for our country. And there is a female figure that is in this sport that a lot of people
already dislike.
But also as a woman in a field that already lacks women, it's really difficult. But
this person has made comments in the past that feels like women hating women.
Long story short,
not a girl's girl.
They made a political comment regarding the current state, and it's just really frustrating because it's just, use your voice to rise up younger athletes, not to comment on what's going on. Like, you just stay in your lane, in my
Well, and
opinion.
all I'm saying is Sky Sports, everybody has already voiced their dislike for this commentator, and it looks like the other commentators have a strong dislike for this commentator. So I would just rethink maybe having this person on, just because nobody really wants to hear from her and nobody really likes her. And there are plenty of other women, if you want a female commentator, there are plenty of other women who would do a good job in that position
Yeah.
and people would actually like them.
It's just frustrating. You're in such a incredible spot, and you have so many opportunities, and this is how you're using your voice.
Yeah.
And that's all I really have to say on it. And I'm sure if that person would ever say that, they would tell us to shut up and stay in our lane, and we try to, but
I literally don't care what you have to say or think about me.
yeah, and the world is a really frustrating place right now, and if you disagree with us, then that's your right, but uh you know we're really frustrated and angry a lot of days right now. So
You know what I'm also frustrated with? On a similar note, but not the same note. Okay, the F1 movie that's coming out. The love interest is the female race engineer. Y'all,
So this
what
was
the
actually
hell?
interesting because the Red Bull mechanic who just retired, there's
Is
a
it Callum, I think his name
there's a
is?
podcast clip where he talks about how, like, women in F1 like are held up to a different standard than men are. And yeah, I just think that that's really interesting that you made that. I don't know, it's just furthering the fan fiction aspect of the film.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna, that's some
It's
big
a man's
money.
fantasy.
I'm not gonna comment on that movie. I'm afraid of that type of criticism.
It's a choice. That's all
Yeah.
I have to say.
Just curious to see how, fans approach it, but also the movie comes out in the summer?
I think so.
Yeah.
Is it going to be in theaters? I think it's going to be
I'm
in theaters.
curious. My bigger curiosity is do the drivers, because they're the other, like, teams, they're actually, like, Carlos Sainz is playing Carlos Sainz, like, one, did any of them have speaking roles?
Yeah, I think so.
Two,
Are they getting paid for this?
are they getting paid as actors? Like, how did this entire process, like,
Do they realize that
happen?
they're playing themselves in a fan fiction movie?
Yeah, I just think it's really
Oh,
interesting.
speaking of fan fiction movies, actually, Kika, Pierre Gasly's girlfriend, Kika, posted, I think it was a video or an Instagram story of her watching My Fault London. So, My Fault London is a movie that came out on Amazon Prime. It was originally a Spanish fan fiction called Culpa Mia, and then there's like a few different other books. Amazon came out with the Spanish version of the movie, and then they just came out with the British version of the movie. And the British version of the movie, the main guy is giving Lando energy. Even drives a McLaren.
Oh my god. That's what people are saying online?
Yes. And when I forced MC to watch it, because I ate it up.
I did not. It was
MC
not my
was
cup
like,
of
"Do we
tea."
think that the drivers' girlfriends are forcing them to watch this?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, I know." Even though I've never met Kika, don't know her personally, don't want a parasocial relationship with her, whatever. I know that person is online enough that she's definitely forced Pierre to watch that.
I'm also curious of Alex Albon, because he's chronically online.
Yes.
If he's been made aware of this film. But yeah, there's
Alex
car
Albon
racing.
definitely watched it, showed Carlos, and Carlos was definitely like, Lando!
Yeah, I don't know. It was not my cup of tea, but
I've already watched it 5 times and it's been out for 2 weeks. On that note, our next episode is going to be a Get Ready for Australia, which will be coming out in a week. And Australia is in 2 weeks from this episode. And we are very, very excited. A little nervous for the sleep schedule situation and just not having any sleep. But it's fine. We've got Australia and China this month. Very excited.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be good. Like we said earlier, we have no idea what the hell is going to happen in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Testing was also, like, temperature wise, it was apparently like significantly colder than it's ever been in the past. So yeah, I think it's anyone's game right now. I'm curious to see where everyone shuffles, and we've got 6 rookies on the grid, so um
Let's see
yeah,
how it goes.
it'll be
An
it'll
interesting one.
it'll be it'll be an interesting start.
Yes, it will. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.